Didn't hurt me
Oops.
that hard.
Too many.
That's a lot of swirlies.
Oh shit, no, I stand this
So it's always like
too excited. Wait, no, I
one
didn't.
set, and then
I did not stand this
set
early. I just hit myself
will
with
be
Shadow
safe
Death
where the
for
first set was.
23,000. Hello everyone, Nubkeks here, and welcome to another raid boss preview for the Sanctum of Domination raid, the big raid of 9.1, as we are checking it out here for the first time on the public test realm. Today we're looking at the fourth boss of the raid, the Remnant of Ner'zhul. If you watched my video yesterday, you know we were talking about a pretty cool boss, but it wasn't too difficult in Fate Scribe Ro Kalo. Well, today, Remnant of Ner'zhul as the fourth boss is very, very hard, but also very cool. So let's dive in. Let's see what this guy is all about. So as you go into this fight, one of the big mechanics is, well, he's the Remnant of Ner'zhul. If you guys could confirm the lore, Ner'zhul was, of course, the Lich King, so I believe that he is wearing, remnants of the Lich King's armor, something like that. But essentially, as you go through the fight and you knock him below certain health thresholds, you break off pieces of the armor. So if you're paying attention during the video, you'll see like his head will come off, his gauntlets will come off, his shoulders, all that sort of stuff. I think that we never kill this guy because it gets pretty intense towards the end. We got him down to his pants though. And then, keeping it PG, we said definitely will intentionally die for sure, definitely here, and let the poor man keep his pants. You kind of have a bit of pity at that point, don't you? Coming into his home, ripping off his clothes, at least leave him his pants. The first mechanic you're dealing with is fairly straightforward, but it has a couple of nice twists, and that's the Orb of Torment, or the Orbs of Torment. So the boss will summon in these Orbs of Torment, and they'll be protected by a shield. How do you deal with these? How do you break the shield? Well, you can still DPS them normally, of course, that's totally fine. But one of the tank mechanics, which is a frontal cone, if the tank manages to hit one of the orbs with that, it will break off the shield and the orb will take 300% increased damage. This was very fun as a Shadow Priest, because of course we have Shadow Word Death, which does bonus damage when it targets below 20% health, and it reflects the damage back at the priest. If they take 300% increased damage, you can crit, and you can do at least 60% of your own life in damage to yourself as Shadow Priest. I managed to kill myself only once, which was actually a little disappointing, but it was quite fun. Now the twist on this orb, the thing that makes this quite cool, is that once you've killed it, it doesn't go away. It's still sat there, and it's still pulsing raid damage, which is the reason you want to get rid of these orbs. It's still there. What you have to do is you have to have a player pick it up, run it to the edge of the platform, and then just boot it off. It's like a fun little game of football. Just boom, kick it off the edge, get rid of that thing. A strategy that should be employed against more enemies in World of Warcraft, let's be honest. And when this overlaps with other mechanics, this is where things get pretty tricky, actually. The big other mechanic here is Malevolence. Malevolence, this is nasty. With our raid size, we had 18 players, and we would get 2 people with Malevolence at the same time. So this puts this massive like arrow above their heads. And what this does, this is ticking down, this debuff. When it expires or when it is dispelled, it will knock that player back, and it will knock away everyone else in the raid away from those players. Yeah. So after much trial and error, we came up with the strategy that the raid would generally position around the middle of the room. Then the players with Malevolence would go out one by one. One interesting thing here was that if you looked towards the edge, when you were dispelled with Malevolence, you were personally always knocked backwards. So if you looked outwards, you would be knocked back towards the middle of the room. So that's how we would deal with it. And those players would take turns doing that. These Malevolence dispels also leave permanent pools on the ground, so you are sort of running out of space as you go. So that's something that you have to watch out for, especially with those the Orbs of Torment. Another mechanic that's happening at the same time, which is also quite cool, is you have these like mini pizza slices of dark energy are going to be just periodically appearing in the room, kind of coming from the outside inwards. Again, you just have to make sure not to be stood in these slices, or you will take a chunk of damage. And then the boss is also pulsing raid damage to everyone with his aura of spite, but just periodically throughout the fight, he's going to shoot out this barrage of swirlies around the room. The kicker here, though, I probably shouldn't say kickers, because we're kicking Torment Orbs, it's going to get confusing, but the thing that makes this extra spicy, extra dangerous, is that for every piece of armor that you shatter off the boss, he is going to not only pulse more raid-wide damage, but he's also going to fire more of those swirlies. It actually gets pretty nasty, guys, where like the whole room will get covered in swirlies. So it's like you have to look where the first swirlies are going to land, and then you have to step into that space as soon as they have landed, because it will never hit the same space twice, but basically almost everywhere in the room will be hit, so you have to find that safe space. Gets pretty nasty. Now, those are all the mechanics, guys, but it's how these overlap that makes this so incredibly dangerous. And when you consider knockbacks and all the rest, this is like the ultimate pug killer boss. This is the ultimate pug killer boss, and it's only the 4th boss in the raid. I expect this to be nerfed a lot, because in my opinion, for a 4th heroic boss, this is way too hard. This is just nutty. I loved it. I absolutely adored it. It was great, but yeah, I expect this will not go live in the state that it's in here on heroic. And I think it's. Let me just break down some of the overlaps that can happen. So I mean, overlaps that can happen. I mean, you can have people going, number one, dealing with the malevolence, that is just tough in itself, right? Having people go out to the edge and be dispelled at the right time, because these knockbacks, number one, they chunk you for a lot of damage, but these knockbacks can overlap with other things, right? What if you've got all these waves of swirlies coming out? So you have to time your dispels. Again, you have to do 2 of these dispels within a 20-second window. You have to execute this properly and not get knocked back while there are these waves of swirlies coming in, while there's these, these pizza wedges that will like one-shot you, randomly appearing around the room. At the same time, you're going to have people trying to run out with these torment orbs and kick them off the edge. We had plenty of players, be diligently, they volunteered. They're like, yes, I'm a good raider. I'm a good person. I will not do damage. I will sacrifice my position on the logs. I'll pick up this orb of torment. I'll run it to the edge and kick it off. Look at me go. I'm amazing. This is like an angel. Imagine this angel in a heroic raid. Incredible. And they walk over to the edge. They're about to kick the thing off, and then dispelled, boink. they get kicked off themselves by the rest of the raid group. Oh, it's rough, guys. I'll tell you, it's absolutely rough. Even as a DPS, to be honest, sometimes I got knocked off a couple of times going out with the dispel thing, because you have to look the other way. You have to look outside of the raid. You have to look away from where you want to go when you're knocked back. So yeah, if you're looking towards the boss and still doing DPS, when you get dispelled, you can get punted off the edge yourself. In terms of what specs and classes and things like that are going to be good here, so any sort of burst damage is pretty good against those orbs of torment, to nuke them down and get rid of them when they take that increased damage taken. Again, any specs with cleave really are going to be good. 2 target cleave, maybe 3 target, more so 2 target, because you can have the boss stacked on an orb of torment. Spread cleave could be decent. We definitely ran into situations where there were 2 orbs of torment spread out. We were able to knock the armor off of both of them. So, something like an Affliction Warlock, which could have, dots up on all of these things and then be doing bonus damage to all of them at the same time, would be really, really strong. Any specs with things like leaps or dashes to mitigate the knockbacks are going to be very, very good as well. It gives you that extra safety. And interesting enough, in terms of healers, I actually think it's a pretty great fight for healing, in the sense that stuff like Resto Druid could actually be really good here, which is quite unusual, because there's just a lot of raid damage going out, and your ability to stack up in things like AMZ and barrier is actually quite limited, because there's so many effects that are going out on the ground. You could certainly do it to a certain degree for some of the knockbacks. But I mean, just realistically, between being knocked back twice, maybe even more times on Mythic difficulty, for example, dealing with all these knockbacks whilst also having to dodge swirlies, just the ability to actually stack within within an AMZ or within a powered barrier just seems a little bit unlikely, to be honest. So it's something like a Resto Druid, which can still do a lot of healing whilst being knocked around in the air, because they got all those instant casts, and there is constant raid-wide damage going on, and they can do big bursts of healing with Flourish around those knockbacks and stuff. Could be very strong, so I think that's quite exciting. Could be kind of cool. My opinion on this boss is, honestly, this is just awesome. I absolutely love this boss. I think it's fantastic. Again, like I've already said in the video, I do think this is too hard for heroic. Like, genuinely, if they had this boss with these mechanics working exactly the way they do now, but just have it tuned to be appropriate for a mythic level boss, you would have a really good mythic boss right there. if the mechanics worked exactly the same, there's enough complexity there, there's enough organization required, there's enough stuff going on that you make it like a tight DPS, a tight HPS check, and this would be super cool. This would be an awesome boss. Really, really good. I do think that right now the mechanics are too hard for heroic, is my opinion. I think it's really nasty. So I think it should probably be a little bit easier for heroic. And yeah, I'm not sure what extra they're going to be adding in mythic, but again, my opinion is that there's actually enough stuff here, that this boss does have enough stuff going on for, you know, a fourth boss of the raid. I think this is fantastic. I think it's really good. It's super fun. Lots of movement stuff. Yeah, the only worry again for me is in a less coordinated group that, you know, knockbacks are just super hard. They're one of the most stressful things you can have to deal with, you know, as a raider in World of Warcraft. Just in anything, you know, being knocked around the place, having your movement sort of taken out of your control is just very stressful. It's very overwhelming for people. So that's just my concern, is that it might be a little bit too nasty right now. Let me know what you think though, guys. I could see some people absolutely hate being knocked around and stuff, and they'd hate this boss, but for me, I think this is actually super cool. I really, really like it. I really like it, I have to say. I really do. It's an awesome boss, I think. But there you go. That is my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. We have one more boss to cover tomorrow from this batch of heroic raid testing, so I will see you for that one tomorrow. See you then. It's Garrosh. It's gonna be good. Rar. Loktar Ogar.